AI is great. It helps us become really productive, really efficient, and really effective. But it's no replacement for expertise.
The reality is 90% of the workforce is going to need to be upskilled some way, shape or form by 2030. So there is a massive journey that all of us are going to go on in terms of upskilling and looking at development. But if we can really home in on these power skills, I think you're going to find yourself really employable in the market.
Hello and welcome Victoria and Martyn to People First, the Young Careers podcast. I'm your host Jordan, and today we're going to be tackling the issue of the minute, AI and the future of work. For our listeners, I'm joined by AI and automation specialist Martyn Redstone and Victoria Allwright, IT Services Director at Experis UK. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
So we know a lot of the current conversation around AI and work can be quite doom and gloom. I personally was quoted saying I had a bit of AI fatigue last week. What we want to do today is look at how workers can realistically adapt and grow and thrive with AI rather than work against it, and sort of maintaining our human edge, if that makes sense. So to kick us off, could both of you explain a little bit about what you do and maybe where AI comes into your role and how you work with it? I'm going to come to you first, Victoria.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me today, Jordan. I'm a Client Services Director in Experis, and we are the professional IT resourcing and managed services division of the Manpower Group. And being a Client Services Director, I work with enterprise clients who are all at different degrees of their AI journey. So really excited to have this conversation today. I'm personally using AI pretty much every day in some way, shape or form. So to give you a couple of examples on that, Jordan, I'm using things like Copilot to summarize my meetings, or I'm using AI tools to look at data or insights around my clients that would have typically taken me a day or so. And now I can do that in minutes. So yes, I am using AI on a daily basis.
Great. And what about you, Martyn?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. So I am an AI and automation consultant for the recruitment industry, like you mentioned. I've spent the last almost 9 years working with recruiters on implementing conversational AI and generative AI, so chatbots, voice bots, those kind of things. Most of my work nowadays is on governance, risk and compliance across AI. How I use AI in my daily life, well, I use it everywhere, basically. Just to give you some examples, I spend most of my time working on client projects, so I don't have a lot of time to do my admin as a business owner. So I use AI to do things like monitor my inbox and prioritize my emails. I use AI to transcribe meetings. Yes. I use AI to help organize everything I do, because I really don't have time for admin, and that's the perfect use for it.
Perfect. And Martyn, your work is centered around generative and conversational AI.
That's right.
For around the last sort of 8 years, has it surprised you how quickly AI has boomed into the mainstream, and how quickly we're talking about it?
Not really. And I say that because my work for the last 9 years has been about how do we create very natural experiences when it comes to AI. So conversational AI is all about having natural language conversations with an AI model. And so when OpenAI released ChatGPT, what they did there was put a conversational interface on the front of a very, very powerful AI model. So being able to create a very, very natural way of interacting with technology through natural language, I wasn't surprised at how quickly that was picked up by the mainstream, because it's turned something quite complex into something that's very, very easy to use. Not very easy to master, but very easy to use.
The term AI, what is AI in its basic form? Like if you were selling automated intelligence in an elevator pitch, what's the best way to describe it to someone?
Oh, well, artificial intelligence is exactly that, the ability for machines to make decisions based on algorithms that are in there. And that's the simple definition of artificial intelligence. And I think sometimes there is a bit of a misunderstanding between AI and automation.
Great. That was a personal question from me. It wasn't on the script. And you both mentioned using AI in the day-to-day. I also use it. I've actually learned things from both of you speaking in different ways and how I did not know about monitoring my inbox. job ads, I use it a lot for in my work, rewriting job ads, maybe coming up with candidate personas and things sometimes. Analysing data is a huge thing for us. Obviously, we're given so much to sort of make those data-backed decisions. And like you said, I've spent days before monitoring candidate reports and source reports and things like that as well. And in my role, when it comes to purchasing media as well, it really helps me make decisions that don't just reflect on applications, but also look at offer data and really be able to help me analyze like return on investment that platforms are giving me. And I actually have felt at sometimes that AI has really helped me bridge a gap, a knowledge gap that I just don't have, and sometimes often don't have the time to skill in. And the reason why I'm saying this is I have also felt sometimes maybe an air of guilt about using AI to help me in my job. Sometimes I've used it a lot for things, but on the flip side of that, I am also just one person, and I think the demands on us, all of us in the modern workplace, are increasing. So having anything to help is so important. So do you think there's a right and wrong way to use it in the workplace, doing your job? Do you think there's points that we go too far? I'd love both of your thoughts on that. I'll come to you first, Victoria, if you want to,
No, absolutely. And I don't think you're alone when it comes to guilt, right?
Yeah.
And feeling like, oh, should I be utilising AI? I think you should. And I think it's becoming increasingly more important for people to look for ways to become more efficient in their day-to-day within their roles. I think you need to be cognizant of how you're utilising AI. So I would say definitely don't simply produce a report utilising an AI at all and try and pass it off as your own.
Yeah.
And I think being transparent about the fact that you've utilised AI to be able to support you with kind of framing your position or your thoughts in terms of what you're pulling together. I definitely think you need to look at company policy as well, because that's a big thing around security, which I know you're looking at. So I say those are key areas for me in terms of what you need to be aware of and how you should be utilising it. But yeah, efficiency is something everybody's looking for. So I would absolutely say utilise it where you can.
Yeah. The governance point is something that I want to come on to later, but it's sort of like human initiative. Like, no, I am not going to put sensitive company financials into ChatGPT, you know, but can I maybe use it to tell a story about data that I've received that's in the public domain? Yes. You know, so I think that is a definitely important part that comes to it. And I don't know, Martyn, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. I think what we've seen is some research earlier on in the year from Slack that mentions how people are trying to keep their use of AI quiet when it comes to their managers because they don't want to admit that they're getting help. So that's a really interesting thought process there. But the one thing that I wanted to mention, it's something that you brought up, talking about how you use AI as well, is that AI is great. It helps us become really productive, really efficient, and really effective. But it's no replacement for expertise.
Exactly, yeah.
So if you are producing something, you need to have the expertise that you're able to then review what comes out the other end and make sure it's correct. Because AI has a propensity to hallucinate and make things up. There are stats out there showing, which models are less likely to hallucinate and which ones are. But that's really important. Somebody asked me the other day about the latest trend, which is vibe coding, and using AI to create code, and is that going to be the end of software developers? And the answer is no, because I did computer science at university, which was several decades ago now. I can't remember how to code. I can put a simple thing together, but if I'm vibe coding, I'm going to look at that code and I'm not going to know where to start in order to ensure that it's correct. It makes sense. There's not, overly loads of bluff in there and lines of code that aren't needed. You need a software developer. You need to have that expertise. So whilst AI absolutely helps with productivity, efficiency, it's no replacement for expertise.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there's an element of critical thinking that is needed on the other end of that, I use it a lot for writing at work, a lot, especially in the recruitment industry, and rewriting job ads I've sort of mentioned, but also creating content for clients and web copy and those sorts of things. And yes, there was a point in my career where I would have sat and typed out reels of copy to be approved, whereas now I've taken the time to sort of build chat agents that speak in the tone of voice of my clients, right? Yes, that is super clever, but I think that the demands that are on us to deliver, and I think that there's no way I would be able to turn that around without having done that or without those sorts of agents and things. And something I want to ask you both, and you've mentioned different models and different uses and things like that. I know that there are different things that are maybe good for writing or writing copy. Some platforms are different for research. So do you have preferences of sort of, do you prefer ChatGPT over Copilot to Gemini to Perplexity? Is there anything that you think where there's nuances or preferences?
You've just mentioned one for me. Perplexity, I think, is absolutely fantastic.
I love it.
Having the ability, Jordan, to pull data from various points
and also cite them as well.
Absolutely. Citing your sources are extremely important, because that's where you have to your point, go back and sense check that the data that you are producing is quality and accurate. But I think there's a lot of focus at the moment in terms of the way people are utilizing AI and making sure that they're adapting it to your day-to-day. There's an interesting fact I heard recently. I think only 14% of organizations have any kind of training when it comes to utilizing AI. So that kind of made me realize we're all on this self-serve journey to a degree, right? To explore how it should be used and how we can make it work for us in our way. So Perplexity, absolutely. And another one I would say is Microsoft Copilot, purely because it's embedded and entrenched in our technology within the business. So I can confidently use that, knowing I'm not breaching any kind of policies with my own security team and security measures in place.
Yeah, I agree. And to you, Martyn, have you got any favourites?
Well, much the same. I live my life in Google, so for me, Gemini is my preferred model. There's so many different nuances between the different models, and even Perplexity, because you can choose the model that you use within there. My challenge has always been looking at some of the differences. So for instance, recently ChatGPT has become a lot more sycophantic. Yeah. So you could say in there, "Hey, I've decided to give up work, live on rocks and throw beans at cars that are moving past," and it will say, "Great idea, that's brilliant." Yeah. And those aren't the kind of interactions that are healthy ultimately. Sure. Yeah. So I found that Gemini in kind of conversational prompting is less sycophantic and a little bit.
Can we have a
grounded.
definition of sycophantic for the listeners, please, Martyn?
Yeah, sure. So sycophantic being, like a breakfast presenter on the radio has his little crowd around him that are always whooping him and cheering him.
Agreeable,
That's kind of what you call sycophantic. Okay, so something that is continuously agreeing with you, telling you what a great idea it is. Yeah. Really kind of cheering you on constantly. And some of the latest updates to ChatGPT and also to Claude have created this persona that's a little bit more sycophantic, cheering on the user. And I think that's quite dangerous, because a lot of people use these models to sanity check, run ideas through, even to go as far as kind of getting a little bit of companionship and therapy. Yeah. So it can be quite dangerous. So I prefer Gemini because it's a slightly more grounded model. I also like the fact that it does, because it's linked into Google, it does kind of have that deep thinking mode where it will research and do some brilliant kind of things you can do with that, but also kind of the multiple media that it can create as well, video and image and all those kind of things. So for me, I think Gemini is probably my favorite, but there are so many different tools out there that I use on a day-to-day basis that aren't just LLM chatbots. Yeah.
Perplexity for me, great for the examples that you listed in terms of being able to pull from loads of sources and cite things. If I am doing or like working on a project that I need to understand a lot more, need to do research and don't have the support of a researcher or something, I think is really good. But then Gemini, again, I think is great for research too. I used to go on calls with recruiters and give me a basic understanding of the recruitment industry in Nottingham for, I don't know, like tree surgeons at the minute, and it will tell you, and and I do trust it because of it's pulling from Indeed and it's able to actually connect with the job boards and those sorts of things. So that Gemini is probably the one I stand behind the most from a research perspective. But going back to the sort of sycophantic thing, is that the word? Did I get it right? I quite like that Copilot tells you the decisions that it's made and things that you need to consider. Yes. So I'm writing a CV at the moment. Here's what's good about your CV, but here's the gaps that are missing. Or if you want to do X, Y, and Z, this is how you get it. And it gives you the thought process behind its answers, which I think is really helpful. And I also think that's really helpful for people in our business that need to understand the thought process behind how it is working too. So I think Copilot is the best model for enterprise and for actually working with the recruitment industry or our industry or the professional industry, which is something I'm going to come on to. So in the recruitment process, where would you say opportunities are to integrate AI, and what sort of developments have you seen maybe over the last couple of years?
So I think there's a couple of things that we need to think about with this. So we've been almost exclusively talking about generative AI. And I think that's, again, one of the kind of dangers of the modern kind of hype around AI is that artificial intelligence has been around for decades.
Okay.
But the post-ChatGPT world, November 2022 onwards, we tend to kind of mix AI as kind of the catch-all word for generative AI. So in the recruitment process, I see two different types of AI. I see discriminative AI and I see generative AI.
Okay.
Discriminative AI are a mixture of models that can help us make decisions based on applications and assessments and all those kind of things. And generative AI is the tools that we're using to generate content, the job adverts that you were talking about, the CVs, the social media posts, all those kind of things. And across the entire spectrum of the recruitment process, there is an opportunity for AI at every single point.
I could add to that. It makes me a little bit nervous, if I was to be quite open and honest with you. And I think the reason is I'm a massive, for example, I work within IT. Massive ambassador for diversity within tech. So we kind of look at the processes and how we kind of engage with the recruitment process as is. And unfortunately, I don't think we're at the place where we can say, actually, we really understand how to build creative, diverse teams that are going to be able to push us forward. So therefore, I think there's a lot of companies that I have personally worked with that have had the assumption of, well, AI is going to fix this, right? Well, actually, no, it's only going to make the problem that possibly exists purely more acute. So I think we need to kind of look at, well, what are the processes that we have in place today, and really make sure that we're leveraging diverse people across an organization to build these recruitment processes where we can use AI and technology, not to replace and simply just backfill the bad decisions we were making previously, but to really look at a better way of us doing things and doing it faster and much more efficiently as well. So that's kind of what makes me nervous. And I know I've worked with clients, some who have AI across their interview process, for example, CV sourcing. And I have other clients that have decided to kind of stream back and pull it back because they just don't feel that they're ready as an organization to kind of move it forward.
That makes sense. Have you found that sort of skepticism as well?
Yes, in a word. So first of all, I completely and utterly agree. There is a rule when it comes to artificial intelligence in general, which is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So if you're throwing data sets in and your historical data of how you've made recruitment decisions and it's full of bias, all that's going to do is magnify that bias. So absolutely, the starting point of any AI implementation is to make sure you've got really good bias-free data going into the system. So I totally and utterly agree with you there. Secondly, one of the big challenges that we're running into nowadays when it comes to skepticism around AI and safety around AI is the purveyance of businesses using large language models to do the CV screening, because there's been a plethora of new startups coming out into the recruitment space that are trying to sell CV screening, and they're building on large language models. I did some research recently that I produced and presented a few weeks ago, which shows that's a terrible idea. And again, it's my kind of difference between discriminative AI and generative AI. We shouldn't be using generative AI for discriminative processes. There was issues around rank drift. So on a daily basis, if I wanted to find my top 10 CVs out of a bunch of 109 that I put in there, it would change the ranks on a daily basis. There was no standardization. One model moved somebody from 10th place to first place in a couple of days. So scary stuff. Boilerplate reasoning coming out. You talked about kind of research and reasoning and Copilot talking about why something has happened. There's a lot of research. Anthropic brought something out last year. Apple brought something out a couple of months ago, which hit the headlines, which is that language models don't reason. Yeah. Their reasoning, the kind of, the explanation around why they've made a decision happens post-event. They make it up. They're text generation models. So again, there's no excuse using a language model in CV screening and then saying, why did you make that decision? It will just make it up. Yeah. That's not transparent. That's not, and that's not compliant to regulation, ultimately.
And I was at the Institute of Student Employers conference last week, 2 weeks ago in Birmingham, and each conversation centered around AI. Everything, regardless of what they were talking about, it was all around, whether it was in the process, out of the process, helping with support and writing, applications and cover letters and everything like that. And I think I mentioned like AI fatigue. I think there's a lot of people don't know where to use it or where the parameters are, or where the governance is. Is there any resources out there where we can find, or where someone said is a young person applying for a job, how to use it right, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most forward-thinking organisations are starting to think about this as well. We've got examples of businesses like Monzo, like Canva, even like Anthropic, who are putting out advice to their candidates on how they should be using AI in the application process. And I think that's setting organisations apart, because there's 3 different ways that people are thinking about how do we deal with the use of AI in the job application process from a recruitment perspective. There's some that are just trying to ban it, and that's just going to create shadow usage again. There's some that are kind of putting their heads in the sand and going, well, let somebody else worry about this. And there's some that are embracing it and saying, do you know what? We know this is here. We might as well just give good guidance on how people should be using it. So there's loads of career sites now that are starting to offer that kind of guidance. I work with a lot of my clients on putting that guidance together as well. So if anybody wants to just see what I literally will give it away free, that guidance, because every business should be putting that on their career site.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we've bounced a couple of really important topics across this table, but from both of your perspective, what would be the sort of number one do and number one don't whenever it comes to using AI in the recruitment process? And this is more a question for, businesses, employers that are making hiring decisions rather than the candidate.
Transparency. I think the first and foremost thing to do is, if you are using AI in the process, to tell people where, when, and why. I think that starts building the trust between you and your candidates. Yeah. So that's the first do. The first don't is don't use it without understanding it, and don't use it without putting guardrails and policy in place.
And I would say it starts with policy, really, and it starts with your processes that exist in your organisation today. And I think it's important to have people from different walks of life and different areas of your business coming together to work out the best way that we can look at implementation and rolling out for that particular process. Getting feedback is so important. And there's a lot of times I speak to clients and they've launched things and you think, well, the testing was done from a particular small group, but actually it's not going to benefit you when it comes to rolling out the process. So I'd absolutely say it starts with policy and making sure you've got a diverse team kind of making decisions and implementing those policies into your AI process.
Yeah, I think so. Something I've said before, and this is coming back to Manpower Group Victoria, is I really believe that we need to have like an AI champion in each team, like someone who, even if it's just like they're the SME on what we should be using, what other team members are using AI for, Victoria's using this, but Martyn's using it for this reason, and sort of being able to spread that good word, because I think a lot of us are still sort of working in secret in terms of how we're using it at work, or if we're using it in our recruitment process informally or things like that as well.
Most of the time, people are using AI in secret because there's no company policy.
This is it.
And it's the thing that I hammer home to my clients and to anybody that will listen to me ultimately is, it starts with policy, just like you said, and I give this kind of analogy of guardrails. If you think about driving down a motorway, you've got those guardrails in the middle. They're not there to slow us down. They're there to allow us to drive fast, safely.
Yeah.
So when you do the same in the AI world, and you put guardrails in place and you say to people, we know you're going to be using AI. Here's how we think you should use it safely, responsibly, ethically. Then people aren't going to be using it in secret, worrying about everything. They're going to have a set of rules and they can get on with it and start innovating, experimenting and building.
Something I want to come on to is this whole, it's the title of the episode, is the hysteria around AI is taking my job. It's something all of us have heard, I'm going to say, around the table. Yeah. And I've seen a trend amongst my friends even in the last couple of years that are trying to move, especially in marketing as well, trying to move into more relationship focused roles where you rely on your personality or, being able to work with a client that ChatGPT can't do. But this isn't something that I want to stay on too long, because I want this episode to be sort of shaped around the positives, But can you maybe tell me from your perspective where you think that hysteria comes from, first of all? And any advice that you would give sort of to that person that maybe is worried, maybe they're in a admin role in the health service, or they are doing something that is typically they maybe could fear is being automated. What would your advice be, and sort of what are your thoughts on that hysteria? I'll come to you first, Victoria.
So I think the hysteria has come from the uncertainty. So anything that we're not sure or certain about, it's going to make us slightly hesitant. So we're human beings, and that's completely natural. I think what we kind of need to look at is the value that we can add. So we've got AI coming into organizations, and it's simply looking at taking away some of the more repetitive tasks that we do in our day-to-day. But what that allows us to do is free up our time for the value added. So you talked about customer service and engagement with our clients and sales and development. I think that that's what we really need to be focused on. And I think that they're typically coined soft skills. Creativity and collaboration and curiosity. I actually coin them power skills now.
I think soft skills are extremely brutally hard skills, to be honest with you.
Absolutely. And if you can home in on those, I think that is actually what's going to set you apart as AI starts to come into organizations. So let's imagine you've got 30% of your time as an administrator has become 3. You need to look at what value can you add to kind of bridge that 30% gap, is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So there's a few points there that I completely agree with. The first one, hysteria, has come from the media.
Yes.
It's come from big tech companies that are making poor decisions quickly when it comes to AI. So we see great examples of Klarna, where they sacked all of their customer service department, replaced it with AI, months later rehiring everybody because they made a poor decision. Now, where I see the future, I get asked this quite a lot. What's the future of AI replacing our jobs? I don't see AI as creating job displacement. And exactly like you said, I see it as task displacement. AI is going to be very good at doing some of the tasks, some of the mundane, laborious, repetitive, robotic tasks that we do. And it's going to be great at doing that, which is going to leave us in a position where we do have 30, 40, 50, 60% of their time to fill. Now, I see most kind of departments within the operational side of a business creating 2 different types of role within those departments. And I get asked this more from like the HR and recruitment side of things, but it stands across most professional departments, is that we've got the people that have got the humanist skills, those power skills. Like I love that, by the way. And they're the people that are going to be tasked with developing, creating and nurturing those human-based relationships, because AI is never going to be able to look somebody in the eye and just sync with them.
Or shake their hand or say please or thank you or those sorts of things.
Exactly. But we also have to think about the people that may not be brilliant when it comes to human-based relationships or interaction. We've got the introverts, the neurodiverse, all those kind of things. So I think that there's a place for them, because I think that most departments are going to need humanists, and we're still going to need technologists, because algorithms are still going to need managers ultimately. So I see a place for both types of people. So I see in our world, in the world of HR, humanists, the business partners, the technologists, those people that manage AI agents, plumb it all together, keep the human in the loop, all those kind of things. So I think there's a place for everyone.
Yeah. The element of time came across in both of your answers, time saving, efficiency. What would you say a quick win would be for someone who's using AI day to day, or maybe is just getting started, to time save with those daily tasks?
I think it's about understanding their tasks first. That's a big question, a bit of a catch-all. But I think that most of the time, if I'm working with my clients and we're doing an automation project, we have to do a time emotion study, which is how much time are you taking to do each of your tasks? And it's a real pain in the rear end to do, because you have to assess everything. But once you understand what you're doing and where the opportunities are, the impact is huge. So that's the first thing, is actually work out exactly what you're doing and for how long each task takes. And that's where you'll find the opportunity.
Great answer. We know AI is good at analysing data and above all improving productivity. But what are the human qualities and skills that AI cannot replace? I'm going to come to you for this one, Victoria.
Yeah, no, definitely. And things I'm very much focused on. And I always tell the kids that are kind of going into the market today to find their first jobs, these are the things that are genuinely going to set you apart. So I would say empathy, curiosity, collaboration, creativity.
Yeah.
I would say these are fundamentals, as we call them, power skills that we really need to home in on. The reality is 90% of the workforce is going to need to be upskilled some way, shape or form by 2030.
Yeah.
So there is a massive journey that all of us are going to go on in terms of upskilling and looking at development. But if we can really home in on these power skills, I think you're going to find yourself really employable in the market.
Great answer. Martyn, you focus on helping recruitment businesses automate parts of their services through things like chatbots. Have you come across examples where human touch or just general emotional intelligence was needed in a situation that AI couldn't replace?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about all of the, we talk specifically about conversational AI, so chatbots, voice bots, that's about automating conversations. And we think about a lot of the conversations, where do you live, how much do you earn, repetitive data collection, that's fine. But when we go to kind of the middle to the end of the recruitment process, offer management, that absolutely needs a human.
Yeah.
Because it's an emotive decision that another human has to make. It's life-changing.
100%.
Which is actually why recruitment and employment has to be high risk when it comes to things like EU regulation.
Yeah.
Because it's life-changing.
Yeah.
So impactful conversations absolutely shouldn't be automated. They can be, but they shouldn't be. But when it comes to kind of, collecting data, very binary conversations, top of the funnel screening conversations, yes, because most people get ghosted, so have it with a chatbot rather than be ignored. When we come to the middle, to the other end, to the bottom end of the funnel, you shouldn't be automating those conversations.
Great. So I have come to the end of the questions, but there's some personal questions I'd like to ask while I've got two experts in the room, right? One, what is your most common use for AI outside of work in your personal life?
Ooh, can I say my robot Hoover is my best
Great.
friend since December.
Goodness.
My husband gave me the best present he possibly could. So I would say yes, my robot at home.
Do you know, once upon a time, if I bought my wife a Hoover, it would have been misogynistic.
It would have been. AI's changing that for us now.
Yeah.
It's just helping me sort of sit on the sofa while I watch it make its way around the living room.
That is amazing. What about you, Martyn?
I'll go back to my wife. She's a terrible parker, so getting out of parking fines.
Amazing.
Oh, Letitia's letters on
Yes,
ChatGPT. Oh, fantastic.
I joke a little bit, but yeah, absolutely helping me with things like, I don't know what it's been recently, but recently I've had problems with my washing machine. I've had parking tickets. I've had left, right and centre. So I've literally been using AI to help me create appeal letters or complaint
Great.
letters. Because
Yeah.
I haven't got time to complain. I know I need to, but I haven't got time to.
Yeah.
So those kind of things have been really helpful.
That's two good examples. I have been known to use it to read my blood test results to me before. Like those sorts of things, and help me understand. So
it's a good
there
one.
definitely is good things. I sit here on this podcast every week and I stand on my liberal soapbox. So something I would love to know, and this is out of sheer nosiness, is your thoughts on AI and its impact on the environment. I think it's a thing that people are... I've heard different variations of conversation around it, and I see stats all the time about how much water, for example, is being used in CO2 and things. But then surely there has to be, with all this technological advancement, there has to be positive impact on environmental research. So this is again a very selfish question, but I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that people don't think about the sustainability and environmental impact that AI has. So as an example, it's changed slightly and there isn't really up-to-date research on this, but when DALL-E 3 first came out for generating images on ChatGPT, people didn't realise that generating an image using DALL-E 3 used the same energy that charging a mobile phone from 0 to 100 used. So the impact on the environment and sustainability was absolutely significant, still is. The amount of water, ultimately, when we talk about jobs being created, jobs are going to be created in the infrastructure to run AI, so data centres and computers and computes and all those kind of things. And the water needed for that is significant as well.
Yeah.
But the research you can do, think about how quickly we created vaccines for COVID.
Yeah.
That was because of AI.
Yeah.
You know,
That is
those kind of
insane.
things.
I didn't know that. How did they do that?
It's just like you said about the fact that you can process so much data so quickly
At once, yeah.
and see things that haven't been seen before and analyze things that you would never normally get a chance to. So the speed of research and development around medication, around research into the environment, those kind of things. That's why we're seeing so much happening so quickly now. We're now apparently in the golden age of cancer treatment because of AI.
Great. Well, thank you. That really answered my question. Yeah, it's just like those things. You don't know where to read. It's a conversation I've been having. Like, you don't know where to read your news. Like, you don't know where's a reliable source or what is hysteria,
Yes.
and you just never know like what actually is good or what is bad, what is just media hysteria, and what is actually happening in the world. And your point, what you mentioned about building the infrastructure to support that, you know, there could be a time where we're looking into how we can make that more sustainable and better for the environment and those sorts of things. But I think I sit on the side of the argument that the advancement and the things that it is going to help us know and say, not fail, but say, and like with the environment, I think is going to be like astronomical, you know?
Yeah, I think the societal impact is going to be significant. We're already seeing it with smart glasses and instant translation between the true kind of, you know, world of, you know, the babblefish or whatever it was called, you know, where ultimately I can now go abroad, I can put some smart glasses on and I can have an in real life, almost immediate conversation with somebody from who speaks a different language. Just think about the ability to open up the world even more than it's open now. You know, things like that are just incredible.
Quite powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you both, honestly, for today. I
you,
really had a great conversation selfishly, and I think it'll be a really, really good podcast as well. Could we just wrap up just by letting the listeners know where they can follow you?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, easiest place to get to. I'm the only Martyn Redstone, Martyn with a Y, on LinkedIn, or martynredstone.com gets you all the links that you need.
Fantastic. And I would say the same for me. LinkedIn would probably be the best place to find me. So it's Victoria Allwright. Again, I work with Experis. So if anybody's interested in finding out a little bit more around your journey from a client perspective and how we can support you, or candidates as well, you know, if you're in your early career journey trying to understand how I can tap into AI, please do reach out and I'd love to have a conversation with you.
You both are such naturals, honestly. And that's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much, Martyn and Victoria, for joining me today. To our listeners, if you're looking for a new role, why not check out Brook Street online? There may just be a dream job there waiting for you. Thank you, everyone, and see you later.